Now, for some reason, it feels like the Buffalo Bills are only allowing the media to be at practice twice so far during OTAs. As I scroll through X and I see a variety of other teams posting what appears to be 4 to 5 clips per day from their own team account, rather. But I don't want to complain because we have gotten some pretty interesting nuggets that have come out of OTAs thus far. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the main takeaways, some early risers, some early fallers. And I sincerely hope that each and every single one of you are ready to get into the conversation. Because as many of you know, I start off my show yapping 15 to 20 minutes. And then afterwards, I switch over exclusively to my live chat audience, where they get to take control of the conversation with a Q&A segment. All right, folks, welcome to another edition of the Don Mafia Report. I am live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. EST, typically. All right, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on bell notifications so you never miss an opportunity to join one of these shows live. Now, folks, I was not live yesterday. I was very busy. And then today is going to be the last show until Monday. All right. So I thought that we might as well do a show to kick it off with a bang. I am going to be going out of town to go visit some family. And then I will be back on Monday to unpack everything that needs to be unpacked. And luckily, once I do return, it's going to be right around the time where the Buffalo Bills start their mandatory minicamp. What are the storylines? Will James Cook end up showing up? Who knows? Anyway, let's go ahead and lock in, to what the biggest takeaways of the Buffalo Bills season, off-season OTAs was thus far. And I think a really good way to start, or a really good place to start, has to do with the press conferences that we watched/listened to intently from both of our coordinators, Joe Brady and then also Bobby Babich. Starting off with Joe Brady, I was very happy to hear from him because I feel like this offense has had a sneaky amount of pieces added to it for the past couple of months. How exactly would those players be implemented? And is it going to change Joe Brady's scheme whatsoever? Right? Let's dive into exactly what he said. First player that he highlighted was Josh Palmer, right? He said, quote unquote, that he made a seamless transition into the Buffalo Bills system. Now, that's not the main storyline I wanted to focus on with Josh Palmer, because as many of you know, I am rather optimistic about this wide receiver. I really am. So I think the fact that he can run a full route tree, has all the speed that a wide receiver would need, solid route running capabilities. He's what Amari Cooper should have been. He's what Amari Cooper should have been for this team when we traded for him last trade deadline, say that you will. But he ended up leaving practice yesterday, from what I understood, with I want to say was knee soreness or something along those lines. And unfortunately, it was the exact same injury or exact same issue that caused him to miss some time in 2023. And then also during training camp last year in 2024. So it appears that we're going to have to be watching this very closely as the season progresses, right? Like, we're already starting to get news about Palmer, who had to leave due to an injury, or so at least him being uncomfortable, rather, know about Bosa. So let's just cross our fingers and hope, right, that we can go into this season as healthy as humanly possible. We need depth and we need a healthy squad. Following up, and speaking of health, rather, a player that I think all of us wished was healthy last year so he could really live up to expectations, Dalton Kincaid, folks. Kincaid, the biggest narrative around Dalton Kincaid last year is that he needs to hit the weight room, right? Like, he needs to put weight on, especially if he wants to be this receiving weapon that we drafted him to be. And a couple of weeks back, some of us looked at a picture that was a terrible angle, and we all thought that he lost some weight, and it did not look ideal. According to Brady, it sounds like that this dude has been living at the weight room all off season, and that's imperative, right? And I think it's largely why we lost our strength and conditioning coach, the long tenured strength and conditioning coach, because he was just not making sure that the players had all of the resources they possibly needed to avoid injuries, right? And that's by building a quality muscle base so that you can at least prevent some of said injuries. But sounds good from Kincaid. I'm sure that you noticed that he ended up having a compression sleeve on his knee. That's nothing to worry about, especially according to several of my sources. It's just a compression sleeve. I feel like anybody over the age of 25 that's played sports in any capacity more than likely is going to wear one. Elijah Moore, wide receiver, was also mentioned, of course, by Joe Brady, and so our good friend here. What's interesting is not necessarily that he had more working inside and outside. Brady said something that really resonated with me. He said that he doesn't like to have a pure outside wide receiver. He thinks that that puts them in a disadvantage, but it maintains a sense of unpredictability when you're strategizing against a specific defense. And to be completely honest with you, it makes all the sense in the world. It's very difficult for me to take what Joe Brady said and say, oh, that's not right. Like, you absolutely need somebody that lives on the outside or lives out of the slot, when the man literally blessed us with the most efficient offensive season in Buffalo Bills history. I love that. Say, for example, that we are going to be seeing a hell of a lot of rotation from who is running out of the slot, who is running on the outside. I mean, hell, how many times have we hopped onto this show, or I've had several guests that have said that Keon Coleman would be deadly out of the slot, right? Or Shakir. Like, we should see if Shakir can play on the outside. I have a feeling that we're about to go insane with how some of these wide receivers are going to line up at any given snap. Not even any given game, any given snap, folks. Love to hear that. I still would like Moore to predominantly be on the outside because I think that's where he's going to be able to excel as far as his skill set. And I don't want there being many snaps where Shakir is not in the slot, since he is so deadly with that responsibility. But I understand the DNA that Joe Brady is trying to put out there. I really, really do. Last but not least, two other standouts that really spoke to me. Shenault, based off of what Joe Brady was saying, he wants to diversify how he is used. I think that is just a fluff statement, folks. I was high on Shenault back in his draft process. What was it? I think it was 2019, perhaps. But, like, make no mistake, right? Like, he is not a wide receiver in this league, but he is a quality special teamer. He really is. And I'm not giving up on him entirely, right? Because there have been so many different playmakers that started their career off with a sour note, but came to Buffalo, and the system just ended up completely reviving their career. And the fact now that he is going to be having a quarterback like Josh Allen, maybe he'll be able to be a quality wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6. If, for example, we are in a dire emergency, we're dealing with injuries at one point during the season, that's great. However, I think based off of my surface level estimation, he's going to exclusively be a special teamer and a kick returner. That's probably one of my biggest competitions that I'm going to be looking at through the remainder of this offseason training program going into training camp, is who wins this kick returner, right? So is it going to be Shenault or Codrington? My vote is Shenault, because while I'm not high on Shenault being a wide receiver, Shenault is a better wide receiver than Codrington is a cornerback, right? Two quality special teams players, but the deciding factor is going to be, okay, who is going to contribute more right within their secondary responsibility? That's how I mean it from there. Last but not least, we have Keon Coleman was saying physicality was there, mastering nuances of the game, asking good questions. And that's just Joe Brady speak right there. Like, we want to talk about like what we saw, right? I did hear, which was great. I want to say it was per Sal Capaccio. Shout out Sal. It sounds like that he had an incredible rep against Max Harrison. An incredible rep against Max. Got beat by Max once, but then ultimately ended up bouncing back afterwards. If Keon Coleman can continue to develop, I think that he could have a much better season. And again, when you look at the Buffalo Bills offense, folks, like, this is not a team that's going to call for a 1,000-yard receiver. Maybe scratch the surface of 1,000. But Nobody on this team, as long as Joe Brady is involved, is going to ever surpass 12 to 1,300 yards. Dare I say 1,100 yards receiving. It's the everybody eats mentality. But that doesn't mean I think that Keon Coleman cannot improve in other areas. Specifically, it's not so much on him as a player, but was more so on the execution of the offense. Get Coleman involved in the red zone. He's a big-bodied dude. Throw it up on tight coverage. He's got to come down with it. I feel like we have seen example after example after example. That's largely what I would like to see from Keon this year, is really unlock him as our red zone weapon. That's kind of my thoughts here. All right, next up, defense, baby. What have I seen from the defense? What are my biggest takeaways from the defense? Sound off. And folks, if you are just joining in, please do me a favor and smash that like button. Easiest way to show some love on the channel, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't had an opportunity of doing so already. Make sure you turn on those bell notifications as well, because as you know, soon as when I finish discussing the status of our defense / the state of our defense, I am going to transition over to the live chat where you guys get to take control of the conversation. All right. So let's go ahead and dive into the defense, some standouts that I think that were really quality. Landon Jackson, at least according to reports, has been impressing, right? And so much so that Bobby Babich has said that he looks like a 3-down player. He has that potential. And that means a lot coming from Bobby Babich, since ideally on paper, he likes to run with a heavy rotation on the defensive line. The fact that this young man is already, right, showing Bobby that he could be that dude, it's certainly encouraging. Again, I do want to tell everybody here, right, that I'm not going to put too much weight right into any analysis that comes out of anybody from the trenches. I'm not. It's OTAs. It is the shorts and T-shirts Olympics, folks. Like, that's what it is. It's very difficult for me to draw any conclusions from the defensive line or the offensive line. But it is encouraging that Bobby Babich is impressed thus far. Said that Bishop is taking ownership right within the system. I think that's a big storyline. Safeties, right? Who's going to be the starting safety tandem? Based off of what Babich was saying about Taylor Rapp, it sounds like that, like, he is his dude as far as like the starting strong safety, right? And quality season. I feel like Taylor Rapp didn't get enough love last year from his production, right? 3 picks, incredible tackler. I would say arguably the best tackler we have on this defense is Taylor Rapp. One of, at least. And dude does not get enough love. But now the question becomes, who is going to be his running mate, right? Especially when we run the 2 high. Had a lot of good to say about Jamar Hamlin last year, but again, I do think that he's going to be a backup. So I think it's going to be between Cole Bishop / Derek Forrest. I think Cole Bishop is probably going to win. It's going to be Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp as the starting safeties. Hancock is interesting. He is our backup slot corner. He's trying to figure out a plan for how to utilize him. I think him being behind Taron Johnson is going to be incredible. Same thing he mentioned about Dorian Strong. He's saying that he's working very hard. I think that's going to be a competition between Dane Jackson and Dorian Strong on who ends up solidifying a place for themselves on this roster. We're going to have to see. And Max Harrison has been playing wonderfully from what we understand, right? His speed is finally starting to be implemented now that he is familiar with the system. And as noted previously, had a quality rep against Keon Coleman and against several other wide receivers. Now, yesterday, of course, it's hard for us to really put a lot of weight into it because Josh Allen, as I would imagine, is probably on his honeymoon right now and was not in attendance. But still, quality stuff that we have been seeing from this Buffalo Bills organization. All right, folks, as you know, it is now time for me to transition over to our Q&A segment. In order for me and to easily decipher between questions and statements, please label them appropriately. Start off with your question with a Q dash or a statement with an S dash, so that way I can ignore or look over some of the internal arguments that often occur right within my live chat. I'm trying to make sure that I give a wonderful listening experience to anybody tuning in for the replay of this episode and or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So please label all submissions appropriately for your boy. Now, I do need to give a giant shout out to our proud sponsor today, and that just so happens to be William Matar. Folks, if you are ever hurt in a car, you got to call William Matar, #1 car accident attorney in the state of New York. I would never wish a car accident on anybody, but say, for example, it does happen. It is imperative to make sure that you have good representation, the best representation. And look no further than the man right on the screen. Phone number is right in front of you. And go ahead and check out William Matar if necessary. Let's go ahead and lock in. Let's lock in, guys. Start off with the Q&A statements. Lock in. Yeah, Bella Rose. Hello, Dan. What is going on? What is going on, Bella? Hope all is well. We have Da Vinci's Demons has come in with a submission. Coleman is somewhat slow, but red zone is where we needed him. Yeah, you know what, man? He's not the kind of guy that's going to have the blazing speed, right? Like he's not particularly that dude that I would ever and so anticipate that he's going to be able to work his way down to a 4.4 40. He's not. And we didn't draft him to be that guy. We need him to be a big red zone target. He has the contested catch skills. And I think that this season, maybe now that he has gained a bit more trust from the coaching staff, he can really be unlocked. I think that's my biggest hope, if you will. Carvin, morning, Dan. How is my boy Trey White? So I'll tell you what about Trey White, man. I have not heard anything from a rep perspective, but he did end up speaking on how he is planning on mentoring Max Harrison. His press conference yesterday was, so I'd say very Trey White, right? Super positive, right? Like he walks into a room, he lights it up. And he was saying that he's simply just trying to pay it forward from how certain veterans ended up sort of taking him under their wing when he was a rookie, when he was a first-round rookie going into it, like Lorenzo Alexander, and for example. And same thing with Kyle Williams. So I think when it comes into it, he's going to be a great mentor for Max. And honestly, I hate that narrative. I hate when people are always just like, oh my God, like we could bring in this guy to be a mentor. 9 times out of 10, I don't think players ever want to be a mentor. I think that there's still something about them that wants to be the main guy, right? Like the go-to guy. But this is one of the few exceptions where I genuinely believe that Trey is actually looking forward to it. Like he wants to be there for Max. And dude even ended up mentioning that he thinks he's going to be a top corner in the league in about like 1 to 2 years already. So that's great. Now, maybe it's just like rah. I'm super excited about my new teammate. I'm super excited to be back on the Buffalo Bills, but still encouraging. Needless to say, we have Pez has come in with a question. If the wide receiver core stays healthy for the most part, do you think Josh Allen will run less, maybe even barely run? So I think it's a part of his game, and I think it's something that needs to be utilized as long as it can be utilized. I do think as the seasons go, I do think that we are going to see slight regression rate in those numbers. And not because he can't do it anymore, but I think it's going to be strategic. Because do remember, what is he? He's 29. He's 29 right now. So realistically, like we have to ask ourselves, how many more years does Josh Allen truly have where so he can just send it down the field, right? Take all of those hits and not risk any sort of injury whatsoever. Like we have gotten lucky. It's awesome because like he's a big dude, like has a big body, he's tough. But I think I speak for everybody that is on the other side of 30. Like we all know that our bodies don't do what it used to do, right? Like our bodies are not what they used to be. And that's no different from professional athletes. In fact, I would even say that it's even on a more accelerated level, like when it comes into professional athletes. So say that I had to guess. So I want to say that Josh Allen has this year and next year for him to really be a guy that we would consider to be a dual threat QB. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's something that's going to happen. But once that period is over, then you'll start to see this front office start putting a bit more weight into a quality running back, right? Like finding a true quality bowling ball, like cornerstone of the offense type running back when, like, with Josh Allen, he becomes 32 or 33. It's just going to happen that way, right? Same thing with having a true wide receiver number one, right? Like we can get away so without having a true wide receiver number one and a game breaking running back right now because we have a quarterback that's still playing in his prime. And so I'd say about 2 more years we have Josh Allen and being able to run the football the way that he does. What's up, Dan? How you doing? Which rookie do you think will make the biggest instant impact on this team? Go Bills. Parker Moore has come in with a great question. Dude, you know what? It's tough to say. It's tough to say right now. So I feel like the cop out answer is going to be Max Harrison, but so I do believe it to be true, right? Last year, we were missing such a significant piece right in our secondary, and it had to do with speed, right? Say that we went up against a defense that had, and so an Xavier Worthy, or had somebody that was just an absolute burner. We didn't have an answer to it. I suppose you can scheme out of it, right? Like you can run effective enough zone, maybe line up some big body DBs to make sure that these smaller, fast wide receivers aren't getting open fast enough because like there's some of the issues right on their get off, like right at the line. But now that we have a cornerback that can run shot for shot with the fastest wide receivers in the NFL, I think that's going to pay its dividends. I really, really do. It's tough to say about Landon Jackson, especially since Buffalo has such a heavy rotation. But since we've already heard that Joey Bosa is dealing with an injury, maybe he's going to have to develop a hell of a lot faster than we wanted them to, right? Same thing with TJ Sanders. Like maybe he ends up going out and having a couple of sacks here and there. But again, like he's second on the depth chart right to Ed Oliver. So I think that he's more of a depth piece and a developmental type guy. It's, I don't know, man. It's tough to say. So I'd say it's probably Max Harrison. Spidey Mun, do we know how serious the Bosa injury is? Who would be replacing him? Surely they had a backup plan giving his injury history. So from what I understand, it sounds like that they're just trying to err with caution. Because so when you have calf soreness, right? Unfortunately, that is and so it's a prerequisite to Achilles injuries, right? Like that's normally what you see. So y'all remember when Aaron Rodgers ended up tearing his Achilles like 2 years ago on week 1? Weeks before that in training camp, he was sitting out due to calf soreness, right? Same exact thing with Christian McCaffrey last year. It started off with calf soreness, and then unfortunately that like had to turn into like this big surgical issue. I don't believe it's crazy, and say that so the Bills wanted to be risky. I'm sure that he probably could go out there and get some like very like solid reps, like right in OTAs and even mandatory minicamp. But I think Buffalo is just trying to be as cautious as humanly possible because Bosa is wildly, wildly important to this defensive line. And he needs to be there for us this year. So I suppose I'm not like overly concerned. King Reptar 83. What's going on, King Reptar? Listen, man, I love seeing all the new faces in the chat, man. Shout out to everybody that's a newbie. Guys, listen, if anybody is new in the chat, please do us a favor and introduce yourself. We are building a crazy family. I love to hear it. Hypothetically, if the Bills trade Cook before the season starts, what player would you want? Say that Cook were to be traded, I'm not entirely sure that a player would be involved. So within that package, I think it would be future draft capital. It's hard for me to like see like a straight up player for player swap. It would probably be a draft pick and then maybe like a depth player or something along those lines. I'm still not convinced that James Cook is going to be traded, right? it's tough for me to like find an NFL organization barring some serious injury that maybe occurs during OTAs within the next couple of weeks or mandatory minicamp. Um, he's got to be on this team. I think the question is, does he show up to mandatory minicamp? I'm still going to vote. I'm still going to vote and suggest that he's not going to be there. I don't think dude is going to be there. That is me. YPN 519, is Bosa's injury something to worry about since we already lost Ogunjobi and Hoyt for 6 games? So the encouraging thing is it's June, right? So we still have about 3 months exactly, right? Actually, yeah, it's July, August, September. 3 months exactly. A little more than 3 months from week 1. So as long as we're careful, right? And so as long as we just tell Bosa to take it easy, right? Like still obviously like so make sure he knows the playbook obviously. Hopefully he gets a couple of reps like during the preseason game. My goal is for him just to rest up, right? Because when he's healthy, he's a quality player. And quite frankly, I think it's something we need. I really, really do. As far as Ogunjobi and Hoyt like being out, we still have, right? So we still have our starters and from last year. And which is encouraging, right? Like you still have Gregory Rousseau, have Ed Oliver, and Daquan Jones. All 3 of those dudes started on the defensive line, and all 3 of them actually stayed healthy for the most part last year. Let's hope that that's the case. And then behind Ed Oliver, so we have TJ Sanders, and behind Daquan Jones, we have Deion Walker, who has also been playing, I'd say, relatively well so far this season. And then right on the opposite side, you still have AJ Epinesa and Landon Jackson. So does it suck? Yeah. But we're just going to have to hope that these guys are conditioned enough to where, and so the rotation might not be as friendly, or so the rotation might not be as frequent. And that, of course, so they can stay healthy. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that comes out of this. We have Brantley Bird. Yo, Dan, I just got done with weightlifting and my max on deadlift is 295 at 12 years old. 295 at 12 years old. You're deadlifting already, Brantley. Damn, bro. He's putting up that damn weight. He's putting up that damn weight. So I'm assuming that that's in school, right? And so I'm assuming you're a football player. Listen, don't sleep on 295 as a 12-year-old. That is absolutely insane, man. Shout out. I don't do deadlifts anymore because I'm 33 years old and I don't want to throw my back out. But so I still squat, I still bench press, I still do all that stuff. And I mean, dude, I appreciate that, man. You know that I'm a big guy when it comes into some weightlifting and making sure your body is right. Taylor. And the Ravens will kick that ass in week 1. Taylor Eric has come in and he's already talking that crap about the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. Well, you know what, man? I'm actually very much looking forward to that game to see what's going on. And so it is what it is. You're probably right, Taylor, because it happens every single time. You beat us in the regular season, but then we send you home in the playoffs. It'll probably be the exact same thing. Mako, sup, Dan? And so you think the Bills should look into Keenan Allen or another vet with the Palmer news? No, I wouldn't do that, man. I think that we're fine here. We just need to be super careful with him. We have TJ Sanders will have the biggest impact because he will push every starter right on the front and unlock that defensive end. That is my prediction, man. I'm excited to see how he turns out, man. I really, really am. Your mom. And are we finally a field goal better than the Chiefs in the playoffs? It's going to be tough to say until the playoffs come, unfortunately, man. Knicks 716. Do the Bills have that triple threat on offense, an elite quarterback, an elite running back, and an elite wide receiver? I only see one of the 3 unless Keon or maybe Palmer balls out. I don't see it, and Cook is not that elite running back. So the thing is, right? So I feel like that. So there's really no team that does have that, right? Maybe the Philadelphia Eagles, but us calling Jalen Hurts elite is certainly a stretch. Like that's certainly a stretch, like when it comes into it. So you look at teams like the Cincinnati Bengals, for example, right? So you have Joe Burrow, you have T. Higgins, and you have Jamar Chase. That right there would be an elite trio. But what has that gotten them for the past couple of years? Like, what has that gotten them? Zero playoff appearances right in the past two. And now they are still unable to pay Trey Hendrickson and one of their rookies, mind you, right on the defense. And they can't pay quality players going around it. So having an elite trio can happen in two ways, right? So number one, so you draft very well and you're lucky as hell. And typically, like when that happens, that means that your team has had to suck, I'd say, within the past 3 or 4 years. And the Buffalo Bills, luckily enough, right? Like we have not had a season like that in quite some time since Josh Allen has been here. Or number two, so you are financially irresponsible. Financially irresponsible. So no, we do not have the elite trio, but and so unless you're upset with how you play with them on Madden or something like that, it's tough for me to look at the Buffalo Bills organization and have like really any sort of critique, right? Is my biggest critique on Buffalo, hands down, last year had to be lack of depth. It had to be lack of depth. But now that we have depth, which is way more important than going out and finding an elite guy and paying him $50 million, where like we would have to stray away from the defense or stray away from that offensive line. Like, look, say that you were to ask me, so what is most important to Buffalo's success is the trenches, specifically the offensive line, which is top three in run blocking and pass protection and quarterback. Like, look at both of the teams that made it to the AFC Championship last year, right? Like, who were their wide receivers? Like, who was the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver number one for the past couple of years? You can't name them, right? And even if you can, it's highly debated. And even if you can, it's highly debated. Who has been the Buffalo Bills wide receiver number one? And so you can't say it, right? And dare I even say the Baltimore Ravens, who was their like star-studded wide receiver number one? And don't say Zay Flowers. He had like 1,000 maybe, right? My point is, when you have an elite quarterback, you don't need to have an elite trio. You don't. You just don't. We have Mikey. So with the everybody knows. So if the potential tornado took yesterday did any damages to the Chiefs Stadium, I didn't hear anything about that. I certainly hope all is well. I really do. I certainly hope all is well. I've been here a long time, just never say anything. You're the best, Dan. Go Bills, baby. Frank Powell, I appreciate you, my friend, and I hope you were enjoying your Wednesday. Hope you were enjoying your Wednesday, man. Man, and so I love hanging out with the homies. I really do. Chris Herrera has come in. Dan, I would say calling Jalen Hurts not elite is a stretch. He is a Super Bowl MVP. He stepped up when it mattered. That's elite. So where would you rank Jalen Hurts? And so I'm not trying to disrespect him, but I just think that the term elite is thrown around way too loosely, right? So in order to be elite, so I feel like you need to be top three, top four, maybe, right? And in order to be elite, I think 9 times out of 10, you also need to like have several seasons where you were the only one, where you had to put the team on your back and literally carry by yourself. And in my opinion, and so I think that there are only 4 quarterbacks in this league right now, that could make a deep run right into the playoffs with a lackluster supporting cast. And that just so happens to be Pat Mahomes, so Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. I'd probably put Burrow in that conversation as well because his defense is just so god awful. It is so god awful. But it's tough for me to assign the title of elite and to more than 4 players. It's tough. It's very tough for me, right? Hurts is a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback, but I feel like we way too loosely throw around the term elite, right? Very much how people throw around the term GOAT, like way too often, right? So my rule is that there can only be 4 elite quarterbacks in the NFL, and the next tier would be great. Ryan, it's crazy that all 4 quarterbacks are in the AFC. True. Very, very true. I felt like Saquon Barkley carried, and so the Eagles instead of Hurts. So I got my ticket week 3. Look forward to meeting you all. The Rach review. My friend, I am looking forward to meeting you as well. It's great because we have that Buffalo event right now, and it is sold out, which is great. So we ended up buying a bunch of tickets right to the Caesar Sportsbook Lounge with me, Zbot, Rico. Same thing with TD Finstalk, Richie, and Colby. And that's going to be a damn good time. And have no fear, because we are also going to be selling tailgate tickets once that is all finalized and put together. We have Ray Ray. He had so much help, unlike our QB1. We had no weapons, and Allen made it work. It's tough for me to go on ahead and loosely throw around the term elite. So in order to be elite for me, you need to be accounting for at least 80 to 90% of your team's success. Like, say that you have a star-studded supporting cast, then that hurts you, typically. Has your ticket, man. I am good. And Allen is the GOAT. End of story. I like it. Something tells me this season might end up being a very memorable season league-wide. Lots of bad teams are getting better. Man, I'll tell you what. And so there are a couple of teams that are historically bad, so that I'm very high on this year, right? And so I'm very high on the Chicago Bears. And so I do think that they do make the playoffs. And here's my hottest take of them all. All right? People are going to call me crazy until they find out that I'm right. I think the Carolina Panthers are winning the NFC South this year in relatively easy fashion as well. I'm very high on the development of Bryce Young. I really am. And I have a feeling that he's about to ball. 0 questions asked. If Hurts was elite and the Eagles wouldn't have 200 more rush attempts than pass during the season, no team with an elite quarterback is doing that. We have Ray Ray has come on in. I'm from Buffalo, born and raised, west side of Buffalo. Go Bills till the day I die. Ray Ray, that's my man, dude. I'm from the south side of Buffalo originally. South Buffalo, baby. Damn. And so I'm sure a lot of y'all could probably tell based off of my content and right in the past. So I'm curious if this is going to be another 11-6 season where we sneak into the playoffs, or if it's going to be another dominant 13-4 season and we're contending for the 1 seed. I'm probably leaning. And so I'm probably leaning toward a 15-2, 14-3, right? It's very hard for me to predict. Right, that a team that went 13-4 last year with a lackluster roster, that same team got better in free agency, right in the draft as well. And we have the 5th easiest schedule right in the NFL. It's hard for me to predict that we see any sort of regression from last year. I am very high on this season, barring any crazy injury. And knock on wood, obviously. I have a really good feeling that we're going to be fine. We have Dave Rock 69. No way, Dan. Bucks are going to come out smoking. And so I'm a Baker Mayfield guy. I am. And so I just wish that they did a little bit more to their defense. It is an aging defense that, so I think might be their Achilles heel. I'm still a little worried if Hamlin beats out everyone. So if Hamlin beats out everybody, man, then he deserves it, right? And so he deserves it. So the thing about Hamlin, he's not as bad as everyone says that he is. So last year, he actually played some quality ball. So would I say that he is, and so the best safety in the NFL? No. And so would I say that he is above average? for sure. And trust me, and there are worse safeties to have, folks. And do you think the Bills should re-sign Poyer for depth? Say that Poyer comes back, it's probably going to be a very similar route to what Micah Hyde did last year, where he just joined the practice squad toward the playoff run. That's going to be me. Soul has come in, and the Bills' final record trend tells us that they should go 11-6 this year. They alternate between 11 and 13 yearly. I wouldn't ride home with that. And so I wouldn't ride home with that logic, and so I get what you're saying. And so I get what you're saying there. I get what you're saying, man. All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Don Mafia Report. Again, I do want to remind everybody that I will be out of town starting tomorrow, and so I will return on Monday. So no live streams, however, and so I will be posting a bunch of short content, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Say, for example, you wanted my takes or my content. I highly recommend that you follow me on one of the 4 platforms. That's TikTok, Instagram, X, or Facebook Reels. And you will be seeing about 3 to 4 videos per day. All right. But as far as streams, I'm going to be out of town. And so I'm going to be doing my thing. So go follow me on one of those platforms. All of them are at Real Dan Mitchell. And I will miss you guys for sure. I hope that all of you enjoy your weekend. And don't worry, I will be back guns a-blazing leading up into mandatory minicamp. So I love each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Deuces.